Okay, we're here today in New Paltz, New York to talk to Doug Thompson and Teresa Thompson from Main Street Bistro. So we've been doing these weekly calls to touch base with our local businesses. The idea is for local businesses to compare and share ideas, and also just as a general community check-in, while we've seen fewer of our regular folk. So, it's just like another way for us to stay connected. So why don't we just start with, give us a little history of the bistro, how long you guys have been involved in the business, from the very beginning, maybe for people who are less aware of the history.
I started working there in '87.
1987.
Yikes. Teresa was there.
Right, yeah.
Some of those years. And I worked there part-time. I was doing the music biz then. And then in 1993, I bought the place from the owner. And I've been there ever since. So that's the brief history of the Main Street Bistro. It's been a wild ride so far. This is all a little crazy right now.
The wildest, probably.
Yeah,
right? Yeah.
but I think we've established ourselves pretty well here, and try to always be community oriented and work with the schools and just try to give back to the community. So, been pretty much doing the same thing for 30 years, just cooking 6-7 days a week, and that's it.
Right, and your business is a combination of, you do some catering,
Yes.
and then you obviously have the cafe. I don't know how we describe it, cafe, diner style.
Breakfast, lunch, do catering. I do a lot of events. I'm looped into a lot of races with Mohawk Preserve and a lot of the triathlon clubs and
Girl Scouts.
Yeah, we do a lot of big events, catering wise. So we're all over the place. We keep pretty busy from May to October catering wise, and so it's been an interesting adjustment not to have all that going on. Where it's something that we did every year. We were ready for it, and so that's a big hit for us right now. With none of these events going on.
Yeah.
So big events going.
Right. And then you also use the space in the evenings where you may be hosting different fundraisers.
Yeah, we do a lot of different stuff like that, fundraisers and for teams, and we do a lot of stuff with SUNY New Paltz.
Yeah.
Kind of looped in with because I coach there. I coach high school swim. I coach the Hawks, so I know a lot of people over there. So we've been helping out the SUNY students as well, fundraising and
Chamber of Commerce, foundation, which I'm involved with Chamber Foundation. We host our fundraisers there. And hopefully we'll be able to go back to doing that soon, because that's, a lot of foundations and philanthropic organizations are also, losing out because they, can't host fundraisers. And even if they can, are they going to be successful in these, trying times?
Yeah.
So.
And just to the general public, they want to rent the space.
Right.
So how many individuals do you employ? Do you have a combination of part-time and full-time employees?
I would say, I have 25 employees. So I would say maybe 5 or 6 of them are part-time, dishwashers, cleaners. Everybody else is full-time, and a lot of people have been there for a long time.
Yeah. So
anywhere from 10, 20 years. We got some new people that just came in, but we have a lot of people trying to make some big adjustments here in life. So 25 sounds about right.
How's your staff been doing? I imagine some are on unemployment currently.
Yeah, we've been able to bring some of them back since we opened 2 weeks ago. So I can't bring everybody back right now. I'm trying to, there's really no server position. So it's basically a new position that's been created, kind of cashier/server to deal with all the takeout stuff. So, but I'm grateful that my staff has come back at least one day, some of them only one day, to take on this new role. And I really must say that the community has shown a great amount of support, not only to Teresa and I, but to my staff. It's just unbelievable through gratuities and really just that first weekend that we were open, it was really nice to see. Actually, not for me, I was in the kitchen, but just to hear, people were just happy. It was definitely, something good to hear, some positive, always positive, just rather when you hear all this negative, it was just, we're so glad to see you. We're so glad you're open. And so I'm really grateful to my employees that did come back and to the community for really supporting us through this time. I mean, it is part-time right now. We're only open 4 days, but I think it's a good start. I didn't really want to go 7 days right off the bat. So it's been interesting to kind of reconfigure it all.
What's your understanding of the subsequent phases and like next steps? Like, what do you think your business will look like in a month or two or this fall?
Well, I've been, with this time, I've been trying to follow all the webinars from the New York Restaurant Association. From the last thing that I saw, I think it was either yesterday, was the New York Restaurant Association is trying to push restaurants into phase 2 from phase 3. And I think there's a webinar tomorrow in regards to Ulster County restaurants, if I'm correct, with Pat Ryan. Is that?
Pat Ryan, yeah.
Yeah. So I'm hoping in a month. I'll just say I just was talking about this with my baker. I mean, I'm hoping by July 1st we can go 50%.
50% capacity.
Capacity. Yeah, at least that. I mean, we got, hopefully everything goes. In my opinion, I think everything will go well with phase 1 because I think people have been working. The construction guys have been working anyway, so I think that should go well. Now we got to see what happens, and I don't think it's going to be, okay, we can do 50% capacity. I don't think it's going to be. I don't know what to think anymore, to be honest with you. I can sit here and talk, and we can all probably have our own theories on what might happen. I can honestly say when I first opened, I actually didn't think we were going to be that busy, and we were busy. So, and it was like relearning a whole new kitchen, and so I don't know what to expect if we go 50%. I'm sure people will, I don't know. Like, we've already talked about this, and I basically ended the conversations on how you're going to handle 50%. With the social distancing and keep the line, or if there's lines and contactless payment. And we've worked a lot with our POS company on a lot of that stuff. So, I'm just hoping for all restaurants and businesses that we could get at least 50% back to normal by July 1st to get us to get some summer.
Oh, somebody muted us.
Muted?
I don't know. You are muted here. Oh, unmute. I don't know.
I didn't touch any.
You're okay now. You were muted for
okay.
1 second.
Okay.
No,
Wasn't sure.
I think the other big thing for my restaurant, and I think for others, is that I hope SUNY opens back up. It'd be nice to get an answer sooner or later if that's going to happen, because I think that's going to be I think that for all of businesses will be a huge boost if SUNY comes back.
Yeah.
And I as a landlord with students that rent, they're stressed out, and with 2 kids that are going to college, these kids want to know what's going on. So I'm hoping that SUNY in the next month or 2 make a decision for the kids and for the business community. I mean, I think that'll be a huge boost for us. I think we're very fortunate right now as a business to have the amount of people that have been coming up here on the weekends. I mean, it's, Minnewaska is a little crazy with all the lots, and I understand everyone's fears and stuff like that, but as a business, it's like there's a lot of walking traffic this past weekend, and it was a holiday, and I'm appreciative of every dollar that I can earn from that. So I know there's 2 sides to every story, but
Right.
as a business, I'm trying to make rent and payroll and pay my insurance and all these, all these costs that, that are due.
And I just want to say the local community has been incredible. I mean, the support that they've shown us, and I know other restaurants and businesses that are open has been really it's incredible. I mean, our love and hearts go out to everybody in the New Paltz community for supporting all of us, restaurants and bars and all of that through this horrible time. So it's been, it's New Paltz strong. We're all in this together, and it's a great, we have a great community here, and it's just, we're just so thankful.
So recently, Katie and I had a conversation with some SUNY administrators, the senior administrators at the college here, and they threw out this date of June 15th. Katie, do you know, is that a date that we're focusing on as far as like getting word from Albany in terms of plans, what the fall might look like? I don't mean to put you on the spot if you don't know.
I just feel like, with most things, Albany, we know when we know. I'm always, okay, yeah. June 15th, okay. We'll think that until June 15th, unless it comes sooner.
Right.
I mean, I'm wearing this hat as professor, employee, parent of college student.
Yeah, right. You're the same boat.
Opened ahead of us. SUNY, but SUNY statewide, it's
right.
It's statewide too.
Yeah. I mean, I know a lot of private colleges have, like my 2 students are going to private colleges, and they've already announced their, what they're doing. They have a plan. There are 2 different plans at both schools, but there's a plan in place. But I know the SUNY has to think about a statewide conglomerate of schools that they have to be concerned with. So I know that that's probably taking some time to figure out, I'm sure.
Yeah, and how do you fit the students and do proper social distancing? I mean, we were already on the very low bottom, if not at the bottom, maybe 1 notch from the bottom on, square feet per both residential square feet to student, as well as classrooms and other space to student ratios. We're pretty low. That's why the arguing for the dorms all the times was that, like, we have way less dorms. So we're actually impeded by that as well, right? Because we're a little space tight.
Right.
Do any of the other business owners want to add something about SUNY or opening, or do you guys have any other thoughts on this topic? It's okay if you don't. Just to mix it up, we can circle back with something related to our near term. But one thing that I'm curious about, because I've heard different stories over the years. So the peace sign mural on the side of the building, can you tell us how you ended up with that? It's such like a iconic mural at this point where everyone's taking pictures next to it.
Yeah.
Melanie Cronin organized some art thing in town. I can't remember the name.
It was like an art show.
No, it was all over town. So that
it was I don't know if that was.
I don't know that, but that piece
was that
was
Coda?
Yeah, it was that.
Yeah. Did you do that, Teresa? I don't know. I thought maybe.
No.
So.
What year was it? Was it when we were doing the Art Saturday thing?
I don't know.
I think it was KT actually when you were. I think that was part of the Art Saturday.
Yeah, I feel like it was that time period.
Or maybe 2010 or 9.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, long story short, they asked me if they could do this huge thing on the side of the building, and I said, "Yeah, it's coming down, right?" They're like, "Yeah, okay." Yeah. And then when I went back there after they stenciled it out, I went back and I looked on the ground, I'm like, "Is that real paint?" And they're like, "Yeah." I'm like, I thought this was to be like paper mache or something, whatever. All right. Believe it. That's before we had to have permits to put things on buildings.
A really famous artist in Brooklyn did it,
Yeah.
and who goes by the name of Gilf.
Yeah.
But I think her real name is Anne. I can't remember her last name. She's great, and she's got a huge following. and she did it, and it's really big.
Uh-oh, you froze.
You know, like that is the coolest thing, and you see people a lot of our customers or just people walking through town always taking a picture in front of it. So
Yeah. The legend that I heard about the mural was, like what you were saying, in that there were a number of artists who were doing like temporary installations throughout the village, and you were under the impression it was going to be a temporary installation or some sort of washable.
Yeah, that's correct. Yes,
And then it's clearly a permanent mural, and you were like, what the heck?
Paint, real paint.
Yeah.
Correct.
But after it was done, we loved it. We didn't want to take
Okay, that's pretty cool. New
it
Paltz
down.
legend.
Yeah.
It's definitely the New Paltz selfie spot, aside from
Yeah.
the mountain, obviously.
Listen, it
Right.
makes cleans up the corner a little, makes it look nice.
Yeah. It's a great piece. It
And
really is.
I'm glad to see other pieces being put around the town, the
Yeah.
village. So.
Some nice murals have gone up in the past few years.
Mhm.
So.
Yeah. All right.
Tim,
So
I had a quick question for Doug and Teresa, if you don't mind.
Sure.
What's the, when you speak of capacity, what is the capacity you're referring to? Is it your seated capacity, the space's capacity? How's that determined, and what would your half capacity be in your restaurant?
The seating capacity is what the fire marshal told, that sign that they gave us last year.
Right. And
So that would be like 30 people.
no,
Like
I think it's like more than that, isn't it? I think it's.
No.
I thought the capacity.
half.
Oh, half. Oh, half.
Yeah.
But I think it's a little bit more than that. I think our sign
No,
was
it's
like
not.
76 or 80.
No.
I don't know.
It's not.
We have to reimagine what that's going to look like, because we were already talking about it. Like, the counter. We have that counter area, and then we also have, the booths. Like, we'd have to sit probably every other booth, or I don't know.
Yeah. It's not gonna be many people there.
Yeah, it's not going to be a lot.
Yeah, it just seems sort of arbitrary, like the 6-foot rule and everything else. It's half capacity. That's just like a number thrown out there and see what sticks. There's
Well, I mean, it's really like what we could do with the booths and stuff like that. Like, so, I mean, when this first was enacted, we basically did every other booth. We had to take out all the 2 tops to accommodate that. I pulled off all the booth chairs, I mean, and I believe at that point, there wasn't even a 6-foot rule.
Right.
It was just cut your capacity in half, and then, I mean, it was all just, what was that, 3 days?
It was only like 3
It was like 3 days
days.
over a weekend, and
Mhm.
and it just kind of turned everything kind of upside down, and no one really cared online. Everyone was just, so, but I think now moving forward, it's already figured it out. We figured it out already. So it's just going to have to be, due diligence on our part to make sure that people are a safe distance apart, and we have a whole. I'm not going to go into detail of it, but we have a whole procedure that's going to go on.
So can you identify anything that that could be construed as something positive from this experience, where you're like, oh, well, we never realized we could do something this way, and when things return to normal, we can try it this way, and this might be better? Can you think of any examples like that?
I think the takeout has really been, we did some takeout before, but we didn't realize, and the delivery is new for us. I don't know how it's going with Brian and Teresa, but I know a lot of places are now doing delivery that never did before. Positives for me as a wife, he's not working as much. It's nice to see him around a little bit more and have him around the house. But other than that, I don't know. Do you think of anything else? It's
No.
scary. It's more scary than I think anything else.
I have a nice level of frustration right now.
Yeah.
And it's not only, I'm trying to work with vendors about, you got to try to work everything out. Everybody's got a different story. Every vendor, trying to work out different schedule times for this and that. So I don't know, positive, I'm grateful for the community for helping us out. That's pretty much the only positive I got right now.
How is it going? How is it with your vendors? Like, are some of them like really hanging on by a thread, or, what does that feel like?
Vendors have minimums, and they haven't lowered their minimums. A lot of these folks. So now, you have to readjust as a buyer. I'll tell you, some vendors I had to fight with about just you're charging me for linens that I'm not even using them. So I had a I don't know, like, I try to be sympathetic to the cause, and things change, and I think people should adapt, and I'm appreciative of all these insurance companies and stuff that are giving you time to pay stuff off. That's great, but it's still due. It's still due at the end of 3 months. Everything's due. And I don't understand. Everyone's like, oh, you got all this time. It's like, well, I got time to, I got to still pay the bills at the end of the day. So, the one thing I did do for my business was I did do online ordering through my POS system, and that's been unbelievable. It's really happened. So
There's a positive.
That's
Yeah.
probably the one that the other positive is that setting my business up for the 50%, and people don't want to touch things, and so basically through my POS, people can look at their menus on their phone. So I don't have to give out paper menus. I don't have to wipe down menus. You can just look at the menu on the phone, and if you want to, you can pay from your phone. You'll be able to have that capability of paying from your with your phone at the table, and we'll see where else this goes. There's other things that this POS company that I work with, they're saying that the next new thing might be ordering from your table. I mean, I know some bigger chains do it right now, but I've always prided myself on, I've always felt that my staff is part of the reason for my success, and I say this at meetings to them, and they all laugh at me. But I think they're, I call them all rock stars. They all have their own personalities, and people come in to see, Carly or Myra or Sarah, and am I going to take that away from online order so people can look at their phone? So.
I can't even, all of us here, I'm like, they know my order.
Right.
So I think all of us in the restaurant business have our own people.
That's so clinical, and
I know. I hate it too.
But you have
I agree with you about your staff, and I think everybody else here would.
But I'm trying to think ahead. I'm trying to be ready, so when that time comes, and if we're still with restrictions,
Carly remembers my parents Ariana just wrote, Carly remembers my parents every time they visit.
There you go.
Yeah, it's true.
He's been there 18 years.
There is that energy there. You're right about your staff. Very true.
So the
Wait,
online order has helped. So
did KT just turn her video off?
I don't know. Here she comes.
Because this is part of the weekly program where KT gets teary-eyed because we're talking about missing people involved in the business.
You're on mute, KT. You're on mute.
She don't want anybody to hear us.
I admit I was totally emo, but there was also some lawn noise activities. So the universe allowed me to,
Well, we were in Rhode Island.
The Thursday KT emo moment.
We were in Rhode Island right before in February, looking at a school with my daughter. We went to a restaurant. We were served by a robot. So I was like, oh God, I hope this never happens, in New Paltz. It was just so impersonal. But we were like, there's a robot coming down with our food. I'm like, a robot? And it was a robot. Yeah.
Well, there's cool places in the city where you can do it, but that's they started that way. You start that way, and it's a small town place. So there's spaces where that could be.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah.
I don't think that any of these things that we put into play to get us through this is something that has to be permanent either. So let's say you have to order from your table for a year and a half, 2 years, whatever it is.
Yeah.
No, that's not going to stick because people like what they like. They like customer service. They like personality, like to talk to somebody. I hate going to the airport and ordering my food or drinks from those little kiosks.
Yeah,
I only do it because I have to and I'm hungry. I would not go out to eat to do that.
Right, no.
Yeah, I would add to that too. Like if I'm at work during the day and I'm staring at my desktop or staring at my phone, my lunch break is my time to put that thing down and not look at that electronic device. So
Yeah.
the idea that I would go into a restaurant now, I got to fool around with my phone more, like that,
Yeah.
that doesn't seem relaxing.
Well, we'll see what happens.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You can sit here and we can all sit here and talk about, what might be, but until that day comes, we're not gonna know. So, my whole theory is we take one day at a time and we see what happens. That's it.
Got it. Anyone else have questions right now? What do you
I have
think?
a question. So I saw some other cities that are starting to open up. New Paltz has a wacky layout where it's kind of almost like there's corners where it's like roads are kind of like somebody painted themselves into a corner, but there are some cities that are opening that are setting aside some public space in front of restaurants where people can dine outside. And I know the Restaurant Association and the SLA really loosened up drinks to go. And that's been a pretty big part of our business since this started. So I wanted to see how open the village was to accommodating any of those issues.
The idea of being more liberal in terms of allowing businesses to use sidewalk space.
Yeah, I mean, it would be tough, obviously, on Main Street because you can't walk. But there are,
Right.
It's weird because I can have people now. I can sell a quart of a mixed drink, put it in a bag, and they can walk out and they can find a bench anywhere in town, and they can drink that. There's open container issues, but you could walk down any street with a drink in a paper bag, and the police can't say, "Tell me what's in that bag." I'm not saying there should be people walking around Main Street with drinks like it's Mardi Gras, but we're really there are a lot of places in New Paltz that are not coming back. They're not, and the ones that are, we're hanging on by a thread. And when we talk about reopening, we don't know what it's going to look like, but we know it's going to be a lot less. And I think the other restaurant people can tell you that. Like, I need, just for takeout, I need the same exact staff right now just for doing takeout. I could keep that same staff, not add one person, and probably do pretty close to a 50% occupancy and serve those customers. So there's a certain amount of people you need just to open at all. So, we're just trying to figure out how together we can get creative without breaking the law, and to really try to attract, more people coming up on the weekends. Like I have an adjoining property on the back of my restaurant with a very big parking lot that's not being used. I'm probably going to put 8 picnic tables out there, because if you can walk out and you can eat in a park bench, you can eat on an adjoining property. I just want to know if the village is going to be receptive to that.
I mean, personally, I think that is the way we need to start thinking of things. And often when there are challenges, we need like innovative solutions. And maybe it's just that, using more outdoor space in a way you never imagined using it. This does trigger some challenges in terms of like existing and approved site plans. Like, a property might not be, it might have a particular use. It's approved to be used in a certain way. But I'm personally open to the idea of, like, if you have ideas, and then maybe we can make a legislative change that impacts the village broadly, so then a number of businesses could pursue that same kind of concept. I mean, as opposed to lots of individual one-offs, which would most likely require a planning board review, if it's using a property or a site plan very differently. So if there was a way we could apply a concept to the whole village, that might be easier.
I mean, like
That's
Brian-
just me spitball.
Like Brian said, he would put picnic tables there. It's not a permanent fixture. So if I put like a bench on the side of my building, or people put, maybe that's something we can maybe look into. That would help all of us and keep people
Yes.
out for the retail businesses as well.
So
Right.
relatedly, I had, and I put it back on grid view so I could see everyone's faces when I say this. Somebody pitched to me the other day that we should get rid of the parking on Main to free up those outdoor spaces in front of the businesses. And I was like, oh, well, let me ask my small business owners what they think about this idea.
Where would you park then? Got rid of all the parking.
Well, what other cities have been doing, and they're cities, not necessarily towns that I've been reading about, they're closing down roads, and New Paltz already has a tremendous traffic issue. So like, let's say you close Church Street for the market on Sundays during the summer. That could be a possibility. Other roads as well, but we already have this big traffic jam and parking issue. I found that most of those models that are working to help restaurants out are cities that can afford to, they're on a grid, right? And they can just shut down the roads that cut across and the smaller avenues, and people can go around that. And that's tremendously helpful to them. But in our tiny town, it's like, how do you make that work? And then how do you make it fair for everybody, all the businesses?
Right, good point.
Yeah, you need alternatives. That's always been the issue, whether you're arguing Main Street should be one way or get rid of the parking.
Yeah, our lack of a
Even if
grid.
you don't go down, up and down Main, there's no, there are, but they're not good alternatives.
Yeah, I always think about our lack of a grid as it's both a blessing and a curse. I think because it's trickier to navigate in some way, it protects our community's character, but then because it doesn't have grid options, we have less flexibility. There's good things and bad things about or difficult to navigate Main Street, where you can't really escape from it too easily. Locals know of a few options, but even those are not, perfect solutions. But Brian, I think to answer your question, if you have an idea, I'm a proponent of, trying to be fairly liberal at this point. And the way we're going to support our businesses is to, let an entrepreneurial be innovative and come up with solutions no one may have thought about. And, I think that's the way forward.
The village board has been thinking and chatting a lot about zoning and what can we do in light of COVID. And
That's great.
Yeah.
That's appreciated.
uncertainties with the housing market. So we do think a lot about the residential piece, but obviously you have a village board that wants to tap your pulse.
Yeah, no, we appreciate
Yes,
JT, and Tim and Bill and everybody else on the village board that, your support throughout this has been really incredible. And just want to thank you guys as well for even having these Thursday chats has been very helpful to a lot of folks. And, thank you for all your support. I think I can speak on behalf of everybody when we say thank you, because you really have been instrumental in bringing us together and talking about the issues. So thanks. Yeah.
Thank you too.
Thanks,
Bill,
TT.
were you going to say something?
Yeah, just that, Michelle Zip and Ari and I had a conversation last year, maybe it was this year, I can't, about combining the parking lot, the village parking lot behind Bistro and Church Street into some sort of courtyard type setting, which could possibly work to a certain degree, and do that not just on weekends, but from say a Tuesday through Saturday timeframe. So, I kind of like that idea. We do close it there during the summer for the farmers market. Somehow it works. Traffic's not so tied up. People are able to attend, and there's plenty of space there where we really don't have that amount of space in other areas other than behind Brian's place in the parking lot.
Bill, these calls are supposed to be 30 minutes and you just opened a Pandora's box at,
What?
we're in overtime and now you're talking about a P word that's a whole other conversation.
Yeah.
Well, okay, so
A lot of facial
No
expressions
comment.
during
You
Bill's.
can look at my face and say, "I'm not coming."
Yeah, that's not a great idea, Bill.
That's my polite outro.
okay, well,
We could talk, you could come in and talk to me about it. I'll give you my opinion.
Good idea.
Someone that's been there for 30 years.
Mhm.
With a smile on my face.
Well, do you guys want to conclude with any thoughts? Like one thing I want to share that, throughout all of this, even, when we were first finding our way and we were trying to interpret like what Albany might do next, like before St. Patrick's Day, we reached out to lots of the different businesses, folks on the village board, we were calling individual businesses, and everyone was just so serious about like, well, what's the right thing to do for the community? And like, just the response was just so encouraging, just from everyone and anyone. And, and meanwhile, everyone was scared to death. It was like, they knew how serious and frightening it all was, but the first words out of their mouth were like, well, how do we do this correctly? And, we want to do the right thing and we want to be as supportive as possible. So, that's been nice, trying to navigate in a community of business owners, where that was their initial response and their ongoing response.
Yeah. I think we all want to do the right thing. That's the most important aspect of all this, is keeping everybody safe and healthy. So whatever we have to do to ensure that, we're going to do. I think all of us will. I have just a quick question, or just a comment, a marketing comment. I just want to relay to all the businesses out there, Brian, Teresa, everybody that's open, please keep putting your food and drinks on social media, because I see that and I think a lot of people see that and they're like, wow, that looks good, and they'll call. I mean, it's, that's the only way we can really reach out to each other is social media these days. And, I know when my kids or I see something on social media, they're like, let's get that from McGillicuddy's, or let's get that from, Garvin's this weekend, or, so it really does prompt people to, patronize those businesses. So, thanks, I don't know, I've just been going, Teresa, I don't know, have you been doing well with drinks and stuff? And because I know
at Jard, I started opening up on the weekends. Just really, it's only the tourists coming in, but I mean, if they're gonna be here, I want to give them some food and drink.
Right.
And I'll have, it depends on the weather. Like Saturday it rained, 0 sales.
Right.
Sunday we were slammed. It was similar numbers that I would do in normal times.
Wow, that's great.
Like 5 items, but people are desperate for anything right now. That's not going to stay once everybody's open, once things are at half capacity. So you just have to take it day by day.
Right.
And it's a constant changing scenario and model that you have no idea what's going to happen next. But if I'm there, I'll see what happens. But yeah, it's great. I'm not going to do it during the week. There's nobody around the market during the week, Yeah. But if the tourists are going to be here and they are a vital part of our community, and as long as they're obeying the rules, I'm okay with serving them. Because they're thirsty and hungry, and the hard part is the public bathrooms, and we don't make it easy for people to have a place to sit, because we don't want to encourage congregating and spreading the virus. So we've taken all the tables out of the market, so they have to find a stone wall or whatnot, but that's on them at that point. We just don't want to make it easy.
All right, well, we're running up against our time.
Okay.
So thanks everyone for.
All right.
Thanks. Good
Thank you,
seeing
everybody.
everybody. Hi, David.
Thanks, guys.
Hi, guys. Thanks.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Be well.
Yes, have a good one.
Next
Yes,
week.
Thank you.
bye-bye.
I love your hair, JP.
Yeah.
Thanks.
I really love your hair.
Wait, Brian,
Teresa loves your hair.
Okay, I
I
love your
don't know
hair
if I'm
too.
done yet. It's a little light.
Oh,
I like it like.
Yeah, it looks good. It looks good.
Thanks.
Very nice. All right, we're gonna sign
Your
off.
hair looks great too. All right, bye y'all.
Bye, everybody.